Okay, welcome everybody. We are at the workshop portion of our meeting for tonight. And first is the Board of County Commissioners updates. And we have Commissioner Chimino here in person, and I see Commissioner Manguso and Linky online. So welcome everybody.
Thank you, Mayor Vandernale, and I hope everyone can hear me okay. This is Rich Chimino. And so, yeah, we're just going to kind of give some general updates, but then I was going to give a more in-depth talk about the potential Fraser Valley Parkway and just an update where we are and some considerations about that. So if I could, I was going to pass it on to our chair this year is Merritt Linky. So have Merritt go first. Hopefully he could unmute himself and just give a few updates about what's on his mind with the county.
So thank you, Commissioner Chimino, and thank you, Mayor Vandernale, for hosting this meeting and put this all together. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. So first of all, just because there's been a lot of changes, I think it would be good for me to just update everyone about some of the personnel changes, and you all should probably meet some of these people sooner or later, and some of you have already met. So I'm going to do that first because it's been a lot of new people. So first of all, officially Ed Moyer, who has been interim manager several times in and out of the past, has officially been appointed to the county manager position. And we did that a week or so ago, but it's not really official till he actually moves his desk, and that's actually happening this weekend. So that's official. So that's how we know it's for real. And then just this also hired Micah Benson, or promoted or changed, and she had been with Grand County Road and Bridge for several years and had worked in some other county departments throughout her time. So Micah Benson will be the assistant county manager, and she started this week officially in that capacity. She's still helping out with Road and Bridge and knows that business inside and out, and I think she'll be a great fit for the assistant manager position, hitting the ground running with that. OEM manager, and that was a big change for us historically because we had the EMS head do that same job, and we split that off. And Joel Cochran, I'm sure most of you have met, and it seems like he's been around for a long time, but truly he just came aboard last fall. So Joel Cochran is our OEM manager and oversees all those kind of events that have to do with the Office of Emergency Management. Also brand new is Alyssa Ingalls, and we hired her to be a fire recovery manager. And because there's so many moving parts with that, and I will talk about that a little more in depth in just a little bit, but Alyssa Ingalls just started here recently to help with all the moving parts, and she's done that. I believe it was Oregon that she spent a lot of time on that exact same thing, working with FEMA and working with some of the other agencies that deal with fire recovery and fire cleanup and disasters caused by fire. So she's a great fit for that. And then also brand new within the last month. Sounds like we're just hiring people like crazy, and we're really not. It's just we had a lot of positions that we needed to get filled, and some of these weaknesses kind of showed up. And this is one I guess I'm referring to. It seems like we did have a communications gap during the fire. We weren't getting things out, and there was a lot of community, I guess, input that we weren't getting communications in a timely or accurate enough manner. So Christine Travis is hired to be a communications director, and she does a commissioner's corner every week and gives a really short summary of what's going on at the commission meetings, and it is on our website, and it just gives a real short 1-page, 2-page brief summary of what went on at our Tuesday's meeting. And the papers like it so well, they're even picking that up to use it to write some of their articles. So Commissioner's Corner on the website. So I think that's all the new personnel. Of course, there's going to be a vacancy in Road and Bridge now for an assistant Road and Bridge supervisor, because that position, of course, was vacated by Micah Benson. So I will talk about fire recovery, and I think Commissioner Manguso will talk about some other things too, and then we'll go back to Commissioner Chimino. So as you know, fire recovery and all the things dealing with the fire has been a huge part of what we've been doing with our time, and there is just a ton of moving parts. And so I've kind of broken it down into rebuilding, cleanup, and watershed management. So the rebuilding process is mostly being done by the individuals, the homes, the 366 homes that were lost and the almost 600 structures, the individuals are doing that. We have streamlined the permitting process and tried to work with that so that there's not a hang up on our end there. We did just recently also make an agreement for funding with the Grand Foundation. And I do want to shout out to Megan and the Grand Foundation. They're doing a great job of helping with this, and the funding that came in for that is unbelievable and amazing how much community support there was. So those people are doing a great job with getting funding out for people that need it. So part of how that came about too is the surveying for the county right-of-way portion of all the damage, because pins and cornerstones and things, the actual physical permanent markers were moved or destroyed or can't be located, for reference points for not only the lots, but just for where the heck our right-of-way is. So that is taking place, and Warren Ward, the county surveyor, is doing that. And the Grand Foundation is going to be reimbursing some of those costs. So the second part is the cleanup of all the debris. I don't know how many of you have taken a tour up there to the Sun Valley area or some of the really hard hit parts, and there's but a ton of cleanup already being done, primarily done by private parties and contractors. And there's just a ton of work being done with that, and there's a lot to go, and probably some of them may never get done. Some of the huge amounts of acres on the Forest Service land or the other just backcountry parts in the Rocky Mountain National Park probably will never get done. It's just probably let nature take its course on that. So homeowners groups are working together. One of note is the Sun Valley Homeowners Group, and they were having weekly calls for a while, and a lot of the county personnel and the commissioners and Joel Cochran and some of the other county personnel, Catherine Morris, our water quality specialists, and different people have been on those calls throughout that. But that's a very active group sharing information. And like I said, that was one of the hardest hit areas. So they're really coming together to try to get their portion rebuilt and going. And if you drive through that area, you can see that they've done a lot of work. So the third part is the watershed mitigation, and there's really kind of two parts to that. And one of it is the flooding potential, which that has two parts to it: the flooding from the runoff and the flooding from the midsummer rainstorms that potentially could wash down hillsides or mudslides and wash out people's basements and so forth. And then the other part with flooding or the water cleanup is water quality. And there's already been records or notes of fish kills happened even last fall, where there's so much ash that it creates a toxic environment in some of the high country stream or the headwater streams that killed some fish. So that whole watershed mitigation and cleanup is broken into two parts. Area A is northern water, and that's the area kind of to the east of Willow Creek drainage clear up into the park. It's the Willow Creek drainage and what drains into Willow Creek going up 125. So part of it is on the west side of 125, and most of it is on the west side of 125. Kind of in between there and the Drowsy Water drainage is where that area A and area B split. So that's where the most water quality and diversion projects, that all water drains out into Willow Creek and or the Colorado, which then gets into Lake Granby and then Chatham Mountain and then Grand Lake if it's going to go through the tunnel to the east slope. And then the area B is Grand County's responsibility. We're taking the lead. So that would be basically the area of the Colorado drainage below Windy Gap Reservoir. And so there's a lot of individual projects that are already taking place there. Some of the ranchers are working on their headgates and their ditches, trying to make sure that they can handle a big onslaught of water, making sure that they're cleaned and repaired so that that's all good to go. So there's some funding that we've been working on. Again, lots of moving pieces with the NRCS, and FEMA is an interesting component to this. We haven't just threw up our heads and say FEMA come in. That doesn't really work here. It ends up probably costing us a lot more money. And there's a tremendous amount of red tape involved with FEMA. And we could go on and on about some of the restrictions and things that you have to do. For example, I'll just do one. You have to barcode each tree that you cut down and track it from when it's cut to all the way to where it's disposed of.
Oh, geez.
We thought that was a little bit beyond what was necessary here when we have thousands and thousands of trees. That's just one example. So FEMA is, we didn't just say FEMA come in, take care of this. We have contracted with the Southern Baptist group to do some assessments and put together a plan for us so that individuals can do this and then they can be reimbursed on that. But, and we haven't thrown FEMA out, but just not at this point, we're not having them come in and just take over. It probably works when there's a hurricane in Louisiana or something where FEMA comes in and sets up camp and takes over, but it really doesn't work in this situation. So that's kind of the short and quick summary about FEMA. And then another big thing we did sign up for the National Floodplain Insurance Program, which does allow some premium relief for floodplain insurance that would help to cover some of the costs if a home were damaged by flood, and also just reduce those premiums. So that's kind of the summary of what I was going to talk about. And if there's any questions, I can take those now, or we can go on to Commissioner Manguso.
Sounds like Commissioner Manguso.
Hi, Philip. Hi, Fraser Town Board. It's good to see you all there. I'm sorry I missed pizza, but Rich assured us he would eat enough for all three of us, and I hope he did.
Sure he did.
Good. Okay, so you guys, I just wanted to, I'm going to be really brief. You're already 13 minutes into your meeting, so I'm going to be quick. I just wanted to give you an update on the Red Dirt Hill. So everybody knows that we put money into design. We budgeted $400,000 for the design of Red Dirt Hill improvements to stop the deaths and the accidents that are happening up there. So in 2021, we are hoping to get the design, the topo and the survey done, right? So that's the first steps. And then in 2022, next year, the design should be able to be accomplished. It'll be done by CDOT. And then we're hoping to start construction in 2023. And I know those timelines aren't what everybody would like to see, but you guys are really well aware in Fraser, you're trying to 4-lane your highway. You guys know how long the design and all this stuff takes, but we are moving forward on that. I think it'll help Fraser, it'll help the entire county, but it will help you guys as well. And that is all I'm going to say. I don't want to put you farther behind. I think you're already in, you still got Rich to go, and we're 15 minutes in. So
quit
again,
rubbing it in. I talk too long. I get it. Sorry.
Well, I just want to give Rich some time. So
I know.
if anybody
I know.
has questions, Andy, you know, you've been on those CDOT calls too.
Yeah.
So
No,
anybody
I do have a question, Chris.
Okay.
So years ago, I rode my bike up the front, headed west up Red Dirt Hill, and that's a nightmare because of that guardrail and no shoulder. And I don't know if there's any room to talk to Headwaters, HTA, and Mira, and see if we might be able to, even a gravel trail that came up that same route. I don't know what the property ownership is down below the highway there, but man, it's just scary. I mean, you've got no place to go, and that guardrail's falling off the hillside already, and it's just so anyway, just a thought, might pursue that with Mira and see.
Andy, are you talking down on the side towards Granby?
Yes, exactly. Yep,
Got it.
coming eastbound up that long grade. There's just no place for an eastbound bicyclist to be at all safe coming up that hill. So
I think it's worth looking into. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, you and I both attend TPR. So
Yeah.
why don't you and I, well, especially if we send United,
Yeah.
let's do that at our next TPR meeting, and maybe we can get some funding.
There's some good CDOT money available for off-highway recreation.
Yes, sir, there is.
So,
You and I both know. So yeah, let's bring it up.
Cool.
Okay. Is that it?
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. And thanks, Rich, for taking care of eating all our pizza.
I appreciate the hospitality of the town of Fraser. Thank you very much. Elevation pizza is the best. And yes, hey, we should deliberate it, and we got to look at cost, but I fully support 2 bike lanes over Red Dirt Hill, both directions, why not? So I wanted to just say, I think the partnership with the town of Fraser over the last 5 years, I think Mayor Vandernell, he came in 2016. He engaged with the commissioners right away. And we talked about some things, and we'll probably continue our relationship. I think it's good. I look forward to seeing the bathrooms and the other improvements along the Fraser Granby Trail and River there by Safeway and all that. And the Highway 40 design, we were glad to pitch in and help with that. We look forward to that being implemented, and you guys, you guys said, hey, we want to do this. Would you guys want to help? And so thank you for, asking for the partnership. And, we'll continue. We intend to continue maintaining County Road 721, which we've done. And so another big thing that's happening though is the what's been called in the past for like 2 decades, the Fraser Valley Parkway. I think some people call it County Road 522. I may have that number wrong, but if we could please bring up on the screen, I think I have a close zoom in on this section of the proposed Fraser Valley Parkway that would be closest to the town of Fraser. And so a quick history as the graphic is coming up. This is 2 decades long. Getting the rights of way. It is a road that would go from Tabernash all the way through, bisecting just west of the town of Fraser. And then the original design went all the way to King's Crossing in the town of Winter Park. And it was thought of, as we all know who live here, even 2 decades ago, it's a Sunday afternoon weekly backup in the winters and summers, high tourist season. We're getting to where tourist season is year round. There's almost no sing seasons anymore. And so it's a challenge. I would like very much if we could do something to alleviate that horrible backup. I want our visitors to not have that bad experience. The last thing they think of as they're leaving our county is this 30-minute, hour-long backup. So you guys, I think, are pretty familiar with it. If not, it is 2 decades long. It kind of gets momentum, then it gets shelved, and it got urgent in 2019 because the State Historical Preservation Office, SHPO, they said there's known historical potential sites along your road. You have to do a cultural survey, or we're not going to allow you to build your road, which is what SHPO does, which is great because they preserve the history. So we were told that in 2019. The deadline was 2020. Well, COVID happened, and so we asked for and thankfully got an extension. But we have a new deadline that we probably can't extend again, and that is September of 2021. So we've got to have that cultural survey complete by September of 2021. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not a lawyer, but I think, or the project might be dead. I think we might lose our rights of ways. We might get another extension, but we're on a path to complete the cultural survey. We initiated phase 1, which is just like a paperwork survey. And they're concerned about the prisoner of war camps, and they are very likely, I don't know where exactly, maybe near the pond. If you can see the graphic there, you can kind of see if the assistant town manager has got his mouse moving. You could kind of show the pond. Maybe you could show them where Old Town Fraser is, Michael. Just kind of circle around Old Town Fraser. So that's beautiful Old Town Fraser, the church, the library, the school. And then the yellow is the proposed road. It's not there right now. It goes across several private landowners. And we've been in conversation with those landowners. I had a Zoom call with 3 of them last week on Friday. The landowners are understandably concerned. They've been concerned the whole time for 2 decades. They've been involved. They've been talking. And so we assured the landowners, and we assured the people of the town of Fraser, the trustees of the town of Fraser, we're going to try to do this in a fully consultative way, in a very communicative way. Right now on Friday, it was voiced, the landowners, they're supportive, they're concerned. Their preference would be more of a locals road. Maybe it stays gravel they don't want a speedy highway. They don't want a parkway, but they're supportive of something. They understand the problem. They want to cooperate with us. So we plan to work with them. But back to SHPO. So there's probably some prisoner of war camps during World War II that the road might be going right over. And so they're going to do the phase 1, should come back in a couple of weeks. And then depending on what they find, if it's pretty clear the road is not on top of the historical sites, that would be positive if you're in favor of this road. And some of you may be for and against. I'm open to an open dialogue with y'all, with your residents, with the residents of unincorporated Grand County that's nearby. People are concerned. I could tell you, I'm getting phone calls and emails for the last 5 years. This proposed road goes over wetlands. There's concern about disturbing the wetlands. I assure people, look, you may not like the solution, but when that happens, work with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we'll have to create new wetlands, which we intend to do, I think over in the meadow, kind of on the other side of the Fraser Flats there. But there is a location where new wetlands would be built and made, and that's how that works. And so there should be no loss of wetlands, but I can still understand they don't want to lose those wetlands there. So there's going to be pros and cons. You know, if we don't do it, folks will be upset because that backup will remain. If we do it, folks will be upset because just, you know, it's a new road, it disturbs some things. But I kind of want to start addressing though with the town of Fraser tonight was I wanted to ask you all about the potential, and there's pros and cons to this, but ideally, I think it might be beneficial if one, or I would prefer two places, the Fraser Valley Parkway, or we would call it something else. We'll call it, you know, Ron Jones Avenue or something. But the Fraser Valley Parkway might connect to the parking lot by the library or Eisenhower. You know, Eisenhower kind of ends there. There's no houses right there. I'm sure the residents who live along Eisenhower might not like that idea. There'll be increased traffic. Naturally, there would be. So pros and cons. Maybe the gas station owner might really like that it connects to Eisenhower, but I just think it'd be a little shame if we have locals that know how to avoid the backup. They're coming from Tabernash, they're able to get on the parkway, but then they got to kind of swing all the way around by Safeway and come back in if they intended to go to the Fraser Valley Steel or Ace Hardware. It'd be kind of nice if we had lanes and went through and able to connect. And so I don't know, you guys can think about it, talk about it in a future meeting, come back and say no way, or come back and say we're thinking about it, or say we're thumbs up. I don't know, but that is, I would like to maybe not just build it. I'd like to build it as ideally as possible, as effectively as possible. I think that connectivity might be a good thing. You guys might have considerations why it's a bad thing. Open-minded, I guess. And the cost, you know, I kind of say what I'm leaning on at Fraser Valley Parkway is I'm leaning towards, I don't know if fellow commissioners feel, and Chris and Mayor, please speak up, just start talking and I'll be quiet if you have something to say or if I'm incorrect or you have something to add. We need to finish up by about 6:40. I'm told they have another item to talk about tonight. So I'll try to make sure we'll probably be done before that, but I'll try to watch the clock. I'm kind of leaning against thinking about the road from, by the way, so if you can't tell what you're looking at there, it connects where County Road 50 comes off County Road 5, kind of by the rec center, by the ball fields, by the ice rink. And so if you're coming on 5 from 40, County Road 50 does a 90-degree turn to the right and goes up a hill and heads towards Icebox Estates, head towards Young Life. So instead of turning right, that's where the yellow highlighted road begins, is right there. And it would come off by the, you know, the Excel Natural Gas. Recently did some stuff there. So you would drive right by that, then swing down by the pond and then come really close to the town of Fraser. And then you come out, I think it's County Road 73, is it? Right, Clark? So yeah. Yeah, 73, I think. So that's where the yellow highlighted road ends, but terminate right there. So that's the section. And that, I think that's the key to this, because the Fraser Valley Parkway exists for the most part. County Road 5 pretty much does it. The section from the ice rink, what's called the Fraser to Granby Trail, if you walk that is the easement. And if we built this road, we'd have to make a Fraser to Granby Trail like on the side of it, because it would be on top of the Fraser to Granby Trail. It would swing down through the town of Tabernash. If you guys know Becky Arnold's place, or it goes right by a lot of residences. And so that's about 3 miles of road that could be argued is unnecessary, because of those who know can hop off by the Eternal Hills Church and get over to County Road 5 and get over to the beginning of that highlighted road just fine today. So in the interest of savings, I'm evaluating whether or not that section, we call it the north part of the Fraser Valley Parkway, it might be dropped. I'm not saying it will be, but I'm evaluating that to save money so they could complete this section here. Others may have good reasons to not drop that section, but I see this as what's missing right now, that highlighted part. You could still, if you wanted to, if there's a backup, locals know to get off either at Red Dirt Hill, or if you miss that, then you get off at by the Eternal Hills and you get over to County Road 5. You could get on County Road 50. You could go straight where I think it's, I can't remember my roads, but go to the Fraser Valley Rodeo. If you know how to get to the rodeo, you get to the rodeo, then you could swing down that way. So you can avoid the backup today. That highlighted road there just kind of, you know, it's not the best to go by the rodeo. It's pretty narrow. It's a hairpin turn coming back down. It's more out of the way. So there's pros and cons to all of this. If the historical sites are on top of this road, we're gonna have to change the routing a little bit or drop the project. I don't know. It's hanging by a thread. We could drop the whole thing. We could press forward and maybe begin construction next year if funding's available. A lot's up in the air right now. And so I guess I'll pause and kind of try to take time to listen to some of you, if anyone's online that wants to talk, and just listen pros and cons, listen about considerations. What do you all think?
Well, being somebody that drives that road all the time, winter and summer, the tourists have found it because it shows up on your Google map. So as soon as the highway backs up, it shows you exactly how to come down through, go up past the arena, come down 73. And it's, on a really busy Sunday, it's packed. There's anywhere from 200 to 250 cars.
Wow.
And the speed limit's 40, 35, 25. Average speed of the cars is 50 already. So getting them out of the neighborhoods would be better than leaving them in the neighborhoods. And Chief, I don't go that fast. Whichever chief is listening, I don't go that fast. But yeah, so I'm there all the time taking the back road, because when you're showing properties or whatever, you have to take it, because on a Sunday or Friday going the other direction, you're not getting on the highway. And it's more cars than I've ever seen.
Yeah, thank you, Parnell. And that's a consideration. It's kind of like we are getting more busy. The backups happen kind of all the time, but it's also kind of dead, and things are kind of fine Monday through Thursday, So we kind of invest and build this thing for like 2 times a week, Friday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, So it's kind of struggle to make that investment for 2 days a week, but it is really bad 2 days a week for sure. And sometimes more than 2 days a week. So it's really interesting situation. Thanks for that, Parnell.
Well, and you said it, these are tourists. This is tourist traffic. And if the traffic continues, they just will find other places to go. They'll get sick of it. And as a local, I don't like to sit in traffic either. So I'm certainly for this idea. I think it's a great plan. It's basically a frontage road for Highway 40. And I think that's a good thing.
Have you talked to Rich Leonard about the prisoner of war?
Actually, we talked about the camp recently with just Ron Jones and 2 of the landowners. Ron Jones feels he knows where the foundations are of the remaining buildings. It's not much, in his words. We'll see what the contractor we hired, we paid, I forget, $6 to $10K for phase 1. We'll see what reports they bring back, and they'll be publicly available. I'll make sure we kind of email it to you guys directly, so you see what the initial research shows, Eileen.
It's been a long time since I've been in those pole yard buildings, but Rich has a lot of history in there.
Yeah,
He does.
I don't know if he moved. If they moved that red one away, or it's always been there.
Right,
that
but that
office
would be,
building.
yeah.
So yeah, Rick Leonard would be a really good one to
I have his phone number.
visit with.
I'll try to talk to him.
And then about the Eisenhower comment, the traffic is an issue, but the real issue is the crossing of the railroad tracks.
Absolutely.
That, so.
Pedestrian safety.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, you're Eileen, you're basically saying that the railroad crossing and pedestrian safety, those are reasons to not connect Eisenhower.
Right, unless something is done, if you can work out something with the railroad, which isn't the easiest thing to do.
Those are
and I
important
see
considerations.
that aspect of Eisenhower as part of our big plan on the continuing with the safe route to schools and tying in safer pedestrian routes in from Myers Ranch.
I don't think you'd see
So I totally support this parkway. I think it's going to be huge for the future. We're just going to continue to grow, and it's an important artery for us, or a portion of an artery for us. And public safety is huge. Highway 40 gets shut down with a big accident. You might be able to do those back roads, but in the wintertime, I mean, if we've got them coming and going, it's good luck. I hope that it works with that survey and we can make it happen.
Overall, I think we're only going to grow. And so, yeah, something like this is probably undoubtedly needed in the future, and the need for it only grows as the future. And the longer we wait, the more difficult it is to implement, because more landowners come in and whatnot, development. And so then it becomes even harder. in a way. And I guess, yeah, if their connections, I don't know if they do or don't happen, but I said 2 connections potentially, and maybe 0, but so it is going to connect there, I guess on 73 there. So you kind of had that way to get into town. And so if Eisenhower connects, if the library connects, you kind of got these 3 alternatives. Because, if it only goes like what you see drawn, those people on the edge there next to future development, they'll be slammed more. Some people won't peel off on Eisenhower, they won't peel off by the library. Library's bad because that's by the school. You don't want increased traffic by the school. So there's so many pros and cons. I don't know.
So, Rich, I'm really glad you're focusing in on just this segment. The long piece up towards Tabernash, I mean, that I think you leave that on the table for some future date, but this is the piece that's really needed pretty quickly. And the other reason it's needed is because you guys are talking about a development there at Byers Peak Ranch at 1,200 units. So any ways we can get people, we of course want to emphasize people headed south towards the traffic light and the underpass, but people headed north, this would get them around town rather than driving through town on our narrow streets. I agree with Eileen. I mean, the connection with Eisenhower on the surface doesn't look great, but it also gives people on Eisenhower a way to get out. When there's a railroad, when there's a train across the people on all that side of town, when there's a train across the tracks, it gives them a little easier way to get out without winding through the other side streets. And then finally, if you go down to Boulder and you look around, and Denver too, a lot of towns are doing this, Eagle, and a lot of communities are designing streets that have good carrying capacity, but they by their design almost force people to go slowly because they wind, they have interruptions, they keep people moving, but visually it's a little confusing as you go down a street with a lot of trees and a couple dividers and things that just keep you a little bit on your toes and make you go slow. So I think there's ways we can design this street so that it doesn't become a high-speed, alternative to US 40. It becomes a way for locals to get back and forth across town, and occasionally when we have problems on the highway, then it does give a route. But even people that use this route will think twice about using it because they know it's going to take them a while to weave their way through. So I'm generally in favor of it, and I think the connections into town would be good. And the other thing that we've had struggles with for years is trying to come up with enough money to resolve a lot of our drainage problems that come into the back end of town there, the west end of town. And this parkway, if it were designed correctly, could help alleviate a lot of the crawl spaces. If you drive down Norgren and Carriage and Muse in the springtime, everybody's pumping their crawl spaces. And I think, with the proper design and proper use of drainage, this could really help some of the drainage and flooding issues we have in the back end of town. So, but again, I think it's really important to focus on this segment because of immediate needs. The northern segment, as you said, Rich, I'm really glad you recognize that. The 4x4 road, you guys have done so much work to that road, pavement, new culverts, all the things you've done. That will serve us well into the future.
Well, Andy, I'm getting texts right now galore concerned that you compared Grand County to the city of Boulder. So I just want to say that
Well, that's why
there's some concerns there, but
that's why I tempered it and said Eagle and Denver. I mean, this is being done everywhere where you can put up speed limit signs all day long and people aren't going to read them. But if you design your street correctly, people have to go slow.
Well, actually, Ron Jones mentioned that to me on Friday. His desire is to do just that, make it kind of curvy to force the speeds to be down. And I think it's still be an advantage. I don't want to, upset people. They want to get home after a wonderful weekend in Grand County, but it's still, I think it would be a pressure relieving artery, even if it's curvy. So that was mentioned, and thank you for mentioning that. And also, what I didn't say is you kind of see it there. You see Icebox, you see the loop of residences that are around the rodeo. There's a lot of residences up there off County Road 50. People walk today to the town of Fraser. They got to go like a mile, 3/4 mile out of their way around the pole yard. I see people sometimes walking through the pole yard. I don't know if they know Rick Leonard or not, but there's foot traffic from these areas into the town. And that yellow road might be a real pedestrian alternative as well. Mm-hmm. And I will say I do live near there as well. And I would probably enjoy the ability to walk to Fraser Valley still and then safely walk home afterwards. And so that pedestrian might be a consideration as we develop this.
Move to Easton, it's a short walk.
Yeah. But then, no, thank you all for kind of going around. I really appreciate listening to y'all. Did anybody else have some thoughts?
I'd like to say one thing. We are building the transit center down on County Road 5. So if this parkway was built, it would be a way for our buses not to have to enter on Highway 40 for transit routes through the town of Fraser also.
Oh,
when
my.
Traffic's crazy.
That's a really good point. Thank you.
I would just like to add, hopefully I'm hearing, and first of all, I agree with pretty much everything everybody said. Andy's points are all well taken. But can you make this wide enough to make sure that there is trail and pedestrian capacity next to it? Because I see that as a problem on the current 721. When you're walking, a lot of people walking, and the cars really do go pretty fast on that. And, you know, at some point, hopefully we'll have some kind of pedestrian linkage through there and around. But in the meantime, I think if you're planning this, Rich, connectivity is huge. Tying the ball fields to town and getting the kids in a safe spot, be able to get to school, from the school to the ball field is very important. And I do think those linkages to Eisenhower and the library are hugely important and will benefit the library. It might help the school circulation and how all the school traffic comes in the morning. It'll create an alternative means of people to get in and out of Fraser. But most importantly, I think it's while you're planning this, the SHPO and Culture Center have dealt with a lot of this stuff. Make sure it's wide enough to include a pedestrian component. Maybe set away from it, kind of like we've done the trail along Old Victory Road.
Thank you, Clark. And yeah, so those who might listen, it basically was a suggestion from Mr. Lipscomb that, darn it, county, make sure that the road is wide enough to have a dedicated pedestrian, dedicated bike. And thank you, Clark. Yeah, we need to do, I think it is, but I wrote it down. I'm going to make sure that current easement we have is a good, well, whatever, 90 feet. I don't know what it is, but I want to make sure it's just that wide and build it just that way. So thank you for your considerations. Well, folks, it's 6:38, so I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for
Okay.
coming
Good to see
over.
you all. Thank you for the pizza.
Good to see you.
Thanks for the updates. You guys are working hard.
Taking my pizza and going home.
Walking.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Chris and Merritt, if you're still on there. Okay, we are now at town manager recruitment process update.
Thanks, Mayor and Board. Just want to give you a brief update on where we stand on the recruitment process. I'll let you talk about what we've got as far as in the packet and what the next steps is.
So we are accepting applications currently for the town manager position. That is open until April 26th. So next Monday will be the deadline for those. We have quite a few applicants, so that's exciting. And once that deadline is closed, what we will do is you guys selected a committee that will review all of the applicants and narrow those down to the ones that the board will actually interview. And then those applicants, once they're narrowed down, will be presented to the board on the May 5th meeting. And if agreed upon, or if we need to do a further narrowing down of those applicants, we can do some phone interviews the week of May 10th through May 14th, if we needed to narrow that pool down more. And those would be phone interviews with the group that was selected by the board and not the entire board. And then once we get down to what the board feels is a good number of candidates to actually interview at the board level, we will do those at the May 19th meeting. Those will be public interviews also, much like the interim town manager interviews were also. And then we would hope to be able to select the town manager from these candidates, and hopefully have them start by June 30th. Now, should we be in a position where we don't like any of the candidates and we need to go back out and continue to advertise, then we will at that time decide probably that, I'm going to say May 5th, May 19th deadline to see where the board is at with liking the applicants. If it's agreeable that there's a good people there to interview and somebody there is going to be a good candidate for the town manager. Any
So
questions?
any questions, any
feedback?
On the finalist visit and interviews, are we planning to include the interviews with staff like we did for you?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Wonderful.
You'll run basically concurrent, like almost identical to what you did for the interim manager. So there'll be a staff, I wouldn't say committee, but there'll be a group of staff people represented in that. And then there'll be obviously the board as well. So yes, ma'am, we're going to mirror that interim process just as closely in this process, unless the board has an objection or other recommendations other than that. But it was a pretty thorough process last time around. So yeah.
You worked pretty good.
Wow, how about that?
You ended up with a Lanchy.
And if you remember back, Wes agreed to stay on as long as needed.
Right.
So
we could drag
we
this
could
out.
just drag this out. but-
Wait a second, I'm being set up here, Mayor.
Those were your words, right?
Well,
Your
yeah,
family will
pretty
love
close.
July up here, Wesley.
No.
They'll love July.
I gotta-
We've enjoyed having you here.
I got to tell you, as I make my drive up the valley, coming over the hill on early Monday morning, I'm already beginning to regret, or actually, I don't know if regret's the right word, but I'm already, probably is, but I'm already beginning to dread the fact that I may very well be on the backside of it. So this place is, you fall in love with this place pretty quick. So I can see why it's a special place, and why it's fond to you. So anyway, you may have to shoot me around. I may be a gadfly in July and August too, who knows? But yeah, so if that's still agreeable, it's much like what we spelled out about a month or so ago in the process. As Antoinette said, we've got some applications that we're still going through. So there appear to be some people in there that just from a very cursory look that might be of interest. And so I think we'll convene. I think our plan is to convene our little subcommittee. I think it's next week to start kind of vetting that out. Michael's going to send a link out late on Monday. It'll be a link to all the candidates and all their information, and we can start. And obviously, John Stabney from Northwest Cog is going to be very much guiding us and helping us navigate all of this. So.
Please remind me who the subcommittee is.
Myself and Philip.
Right, John and myself, and I think who else was on there?
Russell and Michael.
Russell and Michael, yes, thank you, and John, yes.
And John.
So, I mean, I think the key is getting it down to a manageable group, you know what I mean? But just making sure that in the group, there appears, at least on the surface, and just looking at the resumes, looking at the background. John and I will know, because of this management circles we run in, there's already one I've seen. I'm like, yeah, no, that probably needs to skirt to the side. Other ones, wow, these are good. And so we'll be relying on that kind of stuff to make strong recommendations to the committee about who might be.
Well, I was thinking about doing an Excel sheet, and Antoinette is sending me the notes
right
that we had from our discussion with John and our priorities and
Yes,
what we
ma'am.
wanted to see.
That's good.
And so that we could, as we go through each person, we could put a check off
Correct.
on each column, or, and then if need be, a number value.
Yeah.
To get a better handle that we could look at to see, okay, this person fits this many and this
Yeah.
doesn't fit any of our parameters.
Right.
I don't know how you find out if they've got a sense of humor.
If you do this job for very long, you have to have a sense of humor
Yeah.
or you don't survive. So
Yeah.
anyway, so any other feedback you have or suggestions or recommendations, please let us know. We'll get going, and we'll give you an update, at least an updated list as anticipated by the May 5th. It'll be a recommended slate to take a look at. Whether it's a large slate and we need to do some more work on that, or whether it's a smaller slate and we feel pretty confident at that point, I'll let the voluntold people who are on the committee report back at our May 5th meeting. So any questions or concerns about that process or where we're headed? All right. Well, thank you for your patience as we work through this. So that's all I have, Mayor. So for the work.
Seven. That's what time we stay on our.
Yeah.
We don't want to start. And Keith is hanging out in the waiting room. Let's Keith, Jeff. Should we let him in? But he's just hanging out in the waiting room. I'm just.
Oh, the waiting room.
Yeah.
So we will take a break and we will reconvene at 7 p.m. for the regular town board meeting.
Have it on our at 7 then. Yeah.